So, the secrets of zone two running for staying injury free. So, how do you run smarter and avoid injuries? Is zone two training really the secret to running pain free? So, let's bust some myths and show you how to use zone two running to train for life, not just for just a random race. So, hi, I'm Dr. Ray Peralta. I'm a physical therapist and run coach with nearly a decade of experience helping runners hit PRs and stay injury free. I've seen too many runners break down doing too much too soon, too fast. As many as like 80% of runners get hurt every year. And today I'm going to show you how zone two running fits into a smart plan so you can train consistently and avoid the common pitfalls that lead to injury. And if you want more help running pain free, check out my free training video, link in the description. So, first you have to understand what zone training is, right? So, if you're completely new to running, you could think of zones. The common framework is a 5-zone training model. In the research, they break it down to 3. But for like, if you use Strava, for example, to measure your runs, they do like 5 zones for running. So for zone 1 would be recovery, which is 50 to 60% of your heart rate max. Zone 2, which is kind of the premise of this video, is aerobic endurance. That's 60 to 70% of your heart rate max. Zone 3 is tempo, or threshold is where your lactate threshold kind of hits, is about 70 to 80% of heart rate max. And then zone 4 is another, like a second threshold of lactate, which is like 80 to 90% now, like what's considered like now in the hard run. So zone 3 is moderate, zone 4 is hard. And then zone 5 is like pure anaerobic sprint, which is like 90 to 100% of your heart rate max, where you're all out effort. Think about like sprint speeds you can only sustain for like a minute or less. So most runners run too hard on easy days, drifting into zone 3 unknowingly. They think they think they're in the easy zone. They think they're in zone 1 or zone 2, but then often they're actually going to zone 3, not even realizing that. This is a very common mistake, which leads to doing too much hard training and not enough easy training. So when you think you're doing your easy days, you're actually doing them moderate to hard, and then you're not making progress. You're getting hurt. You are running on dead legs or fatigued legs. So this often comes from just guessing, because they're doing like 220 minus their age, and then they're just believing whatever the watch or the app tells them, and not realizing that you have to be more accurate. And it also takes discipline to run slow and truly stay in zone 2. And when you're a beginner, that means you may actually have to walk. You may have to run, walk. You probably can't run the whole thing, because then your body starts spiking. And you start getting over fatigue. So sometimes you just literally have to walk, and then with little smaller run segments. So I worked with runners who thought they were doing zone 2. And once we tested them, we found that they were actually in zone 3. And then they were wondering prior to that, why weren't they improving? And they were getting hurt all the time. And it's just because they're training too much in the harder zones. So test, don't guess. So instead of trying to just rely on the app or the watch, actually do a test, do a threshold time trial, like a 30-minute all-out time trial, and it'll get your heart rate max. And then you could also predict your threshold, your heart rate at your threshold, or your lactate threshold heart rate. And then you could work backwards, like from your heart rate max, do like 60 to 70% of your max. And then you could get your zone 2, that's 60 to 70%. If you want more detailed, more advanced training, you could work with an exercise physiologist at a exercise lab, where they do lab testing via treadmill, called it VO2 max testing or lactate threshold testing. We actually get your lactate tested on a treadmill. You're going to be ramping up on a treadmill to hit your max running speed, and then you'll get your heart rate max from that data. And it's in this lab setting, you'll actually get the most accurate data, but oftentimes it could be pricey, especially if you're going to be repeating this test, which I recommend reassessing every 2 to 3 months. So maybe you'll do the lab test, but then every 2 to 3 months, you may want to do a time trial, unless you have the funds or the access to keep getting tested with an exercise physiologist or a cardiologist to get your lab data. But again, a field test is plenty for most recreational runners. The field test, again, is a 30-minute time trial. You could do that every 2 to 3 months, and that way you could keep your training zones accurate, because as you get fitter, right? So maybe you're down here as a beginner, but then as you start getting fitter and fitter, your training zones will start to drift, right? What used to be zone 2 for you now is probably now zone 1. So now you're gonna have to change your heart rate, your paces for your new fitness levels as you get fitter. So you have to reassess your fitness every 2 to 3 months. Otherwise, you're going to be guessing again if you're just relying on old data. So then you're going to be in an undertrained state where you're like, oh, now everything is your zones, everything's shifted, and you're still at your beginner stages. So that's why it's important to reassess. Because yes, overtraining is a mistake, but also undertraining, being undertrained is also a mistake as well, especially if you're trying to improve your performance. So, for example, I tested my heart rate zones back in graduate school when I was doing my master's in exercise physiology. Then years later, I was like, and I did take a break from running, and then I went back to it, and I thought, oh, I could just use the same zones. Obviously, no surprise there. My zones were not the same. And then when I actually got it tested again, I'm like, okay, yeah, there was a big difference there. It was like a 10-year gap or so from like my graduate school and then me going back to running and stuff with doing the formal testing, excuse me. And then I'm like, whoa, yep, big difference. Yes, as you age, your zones change, but also your fitness levels. So again, the beginner to advanced runner as well. And this leads me for injury, right? So even though you're doing zone two running, doesn't mean you have to run every day, especially if you're injury prone. Sometimes you actually have to decrease your running. But then how do you get your zone two cardio benefits? You can also do zone two through other types of cardio exercises, such as cycling, right? Riding a bike. It could be even an indoor bike, doesn't have to be outdoor bike. Now, if you do enjoy outdoors, that's great. You get the benefit of being outdoors, but you could also do this on a stationary bike. You could also just go for a brisk walk. So if you go for a power walk, you could actually do power walking and get to zone two. Or you could even go for a swim, right? You could swim as well. So, or do a rowing machine. So if you have access to a gym, rowing a little bit, if you want to mix it up, and it's really good for runners who are 35 and older or those who are injury prone to, instead of trying to run every single day of the week, which even though it's still, you could do every day of the week sometimes as you're more advanced, but sometimes even the zone two running every day of the week is still cause people with injury who had past injuries continue to have the injuries flare up. So they have to cut down their runs to maybe just 2 or 3 days a week. Then the other days of the week, they do cycling, which is low impact because running is high impact because every time you run, so even though it's zone two, running still high impact, you still get 2 to 3 times your body weight going through your leg every time your foot hits the ground, going through your joints. So by doing zone two on bike or some other low impact sport, you can still get the heart and lung benefit and still maintain good aerobic base without overdoing it on your legs. So sample 6-day training week schedule. For example, let's say your long runs on the weekend, maybe you do on a Saturday or Sunday, you can do your long run at zone two. So that would be a day. So for a 6-day training week, then a second day of the week, you could do cross training. So you can maybe a brisk walk or a bike, and then you do a recovery run, and then you do a tempo run, then maybe another cross training day, and then you do a speed interval day, right? So you go easy, hard, like you mix it up like zone two, zone 3, zone 2, zone 4. Like you have an easy day, easy, hard. So don't have hard days back to back. So you give your body some time to recover between hard training zones, right? So you could have easy days back to back, but you shouldn't have hard days back to back because again, having the hard days back to back, let's say you have like a speed day and tempo run back to back, that might be too much on your body, even though it's still technically only 2 days of the week, but if it's back to back, it might be too intense. So instead, do easy day and a hard day sandwich, so it's spread out for you and allows your body to recover. So I was working with a runner who kept getting injured despite doing a zone two runs, and it was because she was just doing way too much running for her body's recovery levels, right? So even though she was doing zone two running, but she was doing it like 7 days a week. So we had to cut back her running to just 3 days a week of running, and the other days she could cycle. The result, she still maintained her high fitness. She was still able to do marathons, but now she was pain-free and not having to take time off from like getting hurt or whatever. Like that nagging knee pain that was finally gone just because she gave her knees some time off of running and not having to like run every single day of the week, right? So what are some common mistakes? No strength training. So when you're doing running, whether you want to run for fun or you're trying to run doing the zone two method, you still want to do strength training. Do at least 2 times a week, full body routine. Single set to failure is enough. Yes, there's other types of routines you can do. If you have more time, you could do different types of routine, but for time efficiency, you'll get the benefits of strength training. Do a single set to failure, single set to fatigue, and you can still get all the benefits of strength training. Mistake number 2, too many random group classes. Some people, fall in love with exercise and think they have to do all the exercise there is, right? So then they start doing these random group exercise classes, some, high intensity HIIT classes, boot camps. But if you're going to do that, I recommend swapping out your speed or tempo run because it's still high intensity, right? So if you're doing too many high intensity workouts, that's going to diminish your recovery ability. And especially when these high intensity classes involve jumping and skipping and even some a little bit of running in the class, like maybe has you running in place and stuff and doing burpees and things. That may be too much volume on your legs. So you may actually then just, if you do insist on doing group high intensity interval classes, either swap out a speed day or a tempo run day, and maybe even take out a strength day because sometimes the hit combines strength and running or whatever. So it's a boot camp style class. So that way you're not overtraining or overdoing it, right? Because if you're doing too many random classes, that might increase your injury risk. Right? It's too much volume. Mistake number 3, zone 2, too intense for beginners. So again, sometimes beginners are not even aware that they're not in true zone 2. They may actually have to walk. So instead, and sometimes their ego gets in the way, like, oh no, I have to run. No, you can walk. It's fine as you improve your fitness. You can improve the run interval. So I'd recommend doing run walk for beginners, and you could also run walk as you advance as well. But for beginners, particularly when they tend to run too hard. So do run walk, maybe do 30-second run, 30-second walk. Do that for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, etc. That way you're staying in your zones, and then making sure you're in the right zone. So also have it tested, of course, tested with a time trial or with an exercise physiologist. That way you're in the right zone, but also just appreciate that, hey, you may just have to walk for part of your zone 2 training. That's totally fine. And as you get fitter in a couple of months, then you can increase the run interval. So it's maybe doing a 5-minute run and 1-minute walk. Mistake number 4, elevated heart rate just to general deconditioning, right? And being overweight. So sometimes a lot of beginners get into running because they want to lose weight, or they just want to improve their fitness, but not even realizing that just being overweight is increasing the risk of injury and is also slowing them down, because when you're overweight, your body has to work harder. So now your heart rate is spiking. Like you might be at zone 2 just by walking, just because you're overweight. So know that you lose 5% of your body weight if you're overweight can reduce your injury risk and also improve your cardiovascular fitness, because now you're not carrying as much dead weight on your body, right? Because body fat can put more strain on your body. So just losing some body fat will allow you to lean up a little bit, get to a healthier weight category if you're obese or overweight. And then you'll oftentimes also decrease joint pain. Again, just a 5% reduction. I've seen this as a physical therapist, actually decrease joint pain by just losing some weight. So I had a client of mine who used to run regular marathons, but she was still overweight and in pain. It's only once we shifted our training, so we started doing smarter training strategies, integrating strength training in addition to zone 2, and also dialing her nutrition, what she eats, right? She thought she was eating healthy, but she was still overeating, right? We started making sure she's eating reasonable meals for her goals. Her weight started to drop, right? And so did her knee pain. Her knee pain started to drop as well, just from smart training and smart nutrition strategy and getting to her healthier weight. So don't shy away. Don't think, oh, I'm a lost cause. I'm older. It's just normal to be overweight. No, it's you can get to a healthier weight with the right strategy, and can also make running more comfortable for you. So don't give up hope. So zone 2 is your foundation for pain-free performance. Test your zones, train with intention, mix in cross-training, do strength training on top of that. If you want to run pain-free and stop guessing, I also have a free training video, again, link in the description below. And if you found this helpful, hit that like button, subscribe for more videos on pain-free running.